Hi everyone, this is Peter Skov from Music is a Journey. It's a Friday noon. I'm sitting here in the gymnasium of a kindergarten where I'm going to be having some Halloween parties later on this afternoon. This, obviously, is a very much spur of the moment type video. So last night I was on the train going home and I checked YouTube just to see if there were any comments I should respond to for any of my videos. And the top suggested video that came up was from the channel called the Prog Report, and the big news, Mike Portnoy had rejoined Dream Theater. Then today when I got here this morning, I opened up YouTube and then there was Notes Reviews talking about how Mike Portnoy had rejoined Dream Theater. So I felt really inspired after listening to Notes Reviews or watching his video to make my own comments about the whole thing. And also I watched the Prog Report and I think they had something like 7 different people all, giving their input about the whole thing. So the reason why I want to comment on it is not because I am a huge Dream Theater fan and I was just, super excited that Mike Portnoy is back again. But because I've been doing this first 10 albums of a band series, I've really been getting into this, the dynamics within the band, what happens with members, what happens when members leave, the circumstances, the relationships, and what happens when they come back again, which these reunions don't happen in the first 10 albums. The departures happen within the first 10 albums. The reunions happen much later on down the road. But in a way, this is very much like I've seen with a lot of the bands that I've taken a look at this year. So I want to make some comments just about what I know of Dream Theater myself. Most of my knowledge of the band comes from a book called Lifting Shadows, I think it is, or Lifting Shadows of a Dream. I have it at home. Obviously, I'm not able to pull it out right now, and I don't even remember the author's name, but that covers the story of Dream Theater from their humble beginnings all the way up to, I think, a dramatic turn of events with maybe an additional chapter added in for the self-titled album. So that book at least covers the first 12 albums anyway. And I read that book a few years back. It was, I don't know, 5, 6 years, maybe 7 years ago by now. I really got into both Dream Theater and Opeth around the same time. I was really interested in these two very different aspects of progressive metal. And so I bought all the studio albums of both bands at the time, with the one exception that I did not get Dream Theater's debut album, something I'm not averse to doing, just I haven't gotten around to doing it yet because I'm always finding things to get into. So I watched these videos and I made a list of notes just in this small notebook, a couple of pages. I just want to go through and say what I want to say, so bear with me here. So let's see here, first 10 albums. Yeah, so what I was thinking, I did not do a first 10 albums of Dream Theater video, and I had it, I was thinking next year, perhaps I would do it, perhaps I would do one for Opeth and for Iron Maiden, or perhaps I would just pick 5 distinctive albums in the catalog, or 5 albums that I really have something to say about, and I would make my comments on those as well. So what I know about the history of what happened, of course, Mike Portnoy was one of the 3 founding members, along with John Petrucci and John Myung. They went to Berklee School of Music back in the 80s. I don't think they finished the school, but they were there, and they felt they kind of stood out because they were very much into metal, while most other musicians there were more into jazz or maybe classical. But anyway, they had that beginning, and of course, they started up the band. They had some time trying to find a suitable vocalist. I forget the original vocalist's name. He was on for the first album. And then they got in James Labrie. I think they had Kevin Moore in on keyboards originally. I forget Derek. They changed over one keyboard player before they finally got Jordan Rudess in, who has stayed with them ever since, each keyboard player bringing in his own style to the band. Anyway, what I heard about, or what I read in that book about Mike Portnoy was, excuse me, I'll rub my nose here, normally I edit that out. He was, in a way, I saw him as the creative director in the band. Everybody in the band had their talents, very talented players, but Mike Portnoy was the guy who had the ideas for doing the grand songs, the concepts. And I remember reading that when they were doing Metropolis, Scenes from a Memory Part 2, he put out some of his favorite concept albums, concept narrative albums, including like Pink Floyd, The Wall, and I think Operation Mindcrime by Queensryche. And he intended for anytime anybody was searching for ideas that they should pick up one of those albums that he had laid out, and they should try to listen to it and see if there was anything inspiring to help them out there with making the album. So I always felt that he was a creative director in the band, but he was also very much a member of the band. Unlike, for example, Roger Waters in Pink Floyd, he was a member of the band until after Dark Side of the Moon. He started taking over more and more creative control until finally Pink Floyd, the band, was basically just his band for his ideas. And I think that happens with a lot of those types of people. I gotta rub my nose again, sorry, just a moment here. I think as I talk, the vibrations make the nose hairs tickle the inside of my nose. But anyway, yeah, we see that often with bands where there's one person in particular who has a creative concept for the whole band. And if you get another person in who also has strong creative ideas, there's often a conflict. So anyway, I think Dream Theater was working very well with Mike Portnoy as the kind of creative director. However, after the 10th album, was it Black Clouds and Silver Linings? That was the 10th one, I think. The band was very excited about going in to make a new album, and they had a meeting in a hotel room, I think it was in New York, and everybody gathered in there. All right, let's talk about the new album. What are we gonna do? And then Mike says, I think we need to take a break. I think we should put the band on hold. Maybe for a year or two, and we should all go out and do something different and, you know, reinvigorate ourselves. And everybody else was really shocked about this. Now, a little bit earlier, a couple of albums back, again, in the book that I read, Mike was saying that Dream Theater had reached the point in their career where they were on a kind of maintenance level, meaning they had already made all their big leaps and bounds creatively and had become a really, like, you know, world-class, first-class band. And so now they were at the level where they had to maintain that. But a lot of people misunderstood that as meaning Dream Theater were now just going to, you know, basically just go by the numbers to make an album, which is not what Mike had intended to make it sound like. Then anyway, at this meeting there in New York, Mike told them that he felt, you know, he wanted some time away. And at the time, he had also recently done some fill-in drumming on tour for Avenged Sevenfold, I heard. And apparently he really enjoyed that. And of course, Mike had various things going on in the noughties, the 2000s there. Of course, there was like Transatlantic, and I don't know what else he had going on. I think since then, he's done a lot of different things, such as Winery Dogs and Sons of Apollo, and I don't know, I think Liquid Tension Experiment. None of these bands are actually ones I have in my collection, so I really can't say anything about that. But anyway, they had that meeting, and then Mike said, you know, everybody is free to go off and do whatever they want, and he left the meeting, and everybody was just, you know, feeling like the wind had just been knocked out of them, like, what the heck? We were gonna talk about this next album and what we were gonna do next, and now we're all, you know, the drummer just walked out the door. Our creative director just left. And there was some period in between where they were deciding what they should do, and one point Mike Portnoy said, if you guys want to continue, make a new album and get another drummer in temporarily, that's fine, that's cool with me, you have my blessing. But they were thinking, we don't want to have like a temporary drummer come in to do one album and tour, and then after that bring Mike Portnoy back again. That's not fair to the fans. And so after some discussion, they decided, well, okay, if Mike wants to go off and do his own thing, that's fine, but we want to continue, and we're not going to get in a temporary drummer. So they auditioned, and eventually Mike Mangini came in to take over for the drumming in Dream Theater. Now, there's so much to be said about that. People have said so many things online about, you know, for and against Mike, and now a lot of people saying, you know, thank you, Mike, for all that you did with the band for those last 5 albums in the last 13 years. But anyway, that's where that was. And later on, I think after Mike Mangini had already auditioned and been accepted, or during the audition process, I don't remember, but Mike Portnoy said he would be interested in coming back, and they said, no, man, you left and we're already moving ahead with the next thing now. So it's too late, and that's it, the door's closed. Now, that's what I remember reading in the book when I read it a few years back. So, you know, people out there who know much more detail about Dream Theater, that's cool. You probably have a much clearer picture about the whole thing than I do. That's just what I remember reading. But anyway, just as my interest goes in you know, inter-member dynamics in the band, I thought that was a very interesting story to see how that went that way. So let's see here. Yeah, for me, actually, when I started reading about progressive rock, of course, Dream Theater's name came up, and I was familiar with the band from earlier, but I never really listened to their stuff. So, of course, I got Images and Words. I had my opinions about that. I got Metropolis Scenes from a Memory Part 2. Really love that album because I'm a sucker for a concept narrative, and I really liked the story. I've talked about that one in a previous video some years back, I think. Also, I got Octavarium next, which I also thought was a really good album. And then Awake, which I didn't like as much, but still had one of my favorite songs is on that album. The Lifting Shadows of a Dream actually is one of my favorite Dream Theater songs, and it's on that album. And then finally, I got A Dramatic Turn of Events, just because I was thinking of what were the big progressive rock bands coming out of the 1990s, you know, with Spock's Beard, Glass Hammer, Porcupine Tree, and a couple others, and of course Dream Theater. And so I thought I should pick up one more album from each of those bands for my collection, and that was probably about 5-6 years ago. And I got Dramatic Turn of Events, and I was thinking it was pretty good, and then I thought, okay, I have 5 Dream Theater albums. I'm just going to listen to them and just pick out my favorite songs and make a playlist of my favorite Dream Theater songs. And it was while I was listening to each of the albums, I realized I like pretty much everything. And Dramatic Turn of Events, actually, I really thought that was a great record. So after that, I started to buy the rest of the Dream Theater catalog from Images and Words and up to the self-titled album, and I bought the book. And overall, I'd say there are some albums that I really think are terrific. There might be just 1 or 2 tracks I'm not all that hot about. And some of the other albums, I felt, well, it's kind of predictable that this is, you know, what a Dream Theater album is going to sound like. There are certain things that always seem to happen on a Dream Theater album, and I felt with, like, was it Systematic Chaos and Train of Thought and Black Clouds and Silver Linings, I felt there were certain signature things that always show up on Dream Theater albums that were there, which made them kind of predictable for me. So brilliant the music is, I'm not saying anything about that, but just I had that feeling like, oh, okay, so yeah, I get the idea, this is what Dream Theater sounds like. And so, of course, you know, changing the drummer, taking out the creative director, that meant things going in a slightly different way. And A Dramatic Turn of Events, I really liked that album. The self-titled album, I thought had its good tracks. I think there's a couple I like, and then others just felt to me like, yes, it's another Dream Theater album. But of course, you know, people with more of an ear for the drumming will notice that there's vast different styles between Mike Portnoy and Mike Mangini. I can't say that I am that much of a technical expert on drumming, so I can't say for that. I just remember thinking Mike Mangini was doing a lot of cool stuff on the drums, so I didn't have any problems with it. The Astonishing had such mixed reviews, and most of the reviews I read were not particularly favorable, so I just shied away from that. And after that, you know, my journey in exploring music just kept moving on, and I just never came around to buying another Dream Theater album. Although, because I've been thinking about this first 10 albums of a band series, I did start to consider maybe I should pick up the latest album, View from the Top of the World, or possibly the one before that. I was kind of curious. I should pick up one of them. And it just so happened I was thinking about all this here during the past week, and then this news drops that Mike Portnoy is back in the band. So, let me see here. Yeah, I think with regards to Mike Mangini, so he came in to take over for, you know, one of the founding members of the band, and as well, a legendary drummer. Mike Portnoy is, you know, well, anybody who's watching this video knows. Mike Portnoy is one of the most legendary drummers of, especially certainly of the last 30 years or so. And Mike Mangini had to come in and take over that position, which is, you know, no small feat, of course. And we see this kind of thing often happening. For example, like, you know, Ritchie Blackmore leaves Deep Purple and they have to bring in a new guitarist. Or even, you know, in the case of Voivod, when they lost Blackie on bass and they lost Snake on vocals, you know, later on when Snake returned, it meant that Eric Forrester, who had been with the band for 2 albums and an EP, he had to leave. And he knew that. He knew that the time he came in, that his time with the band was probably not permanent, that at some point Snake would come back, he would resolve whatever issues he had, and he would come back. And Eric just knew that for the time being, he would just give as much towards the band as he could and hope that his contributions would be accepted. And eventually Snake did come back, and Eric kind of knew it, and he, you know, all right, okay, so I'm out of the band. But he expected it, and he accepted it. And it was kind of same too, like, you know, Blackie returning to Voivod, and at the time, Jason Newsted having to step away. Well, he had also been suffering some injuries, a shoulder injury. He'd been working really hard, and so it was kind of good timing to bring Blackie back. But in, you know, there's 2 different examples here where Snake came back. He was like, you know, welcome back, and he fit right back in with the band again, and he's been the vocalist for the band ever since. Blackie came back in again, but here's a case of where you have somebody who has got a lot of vision for how the band should go, and Away had been the, you know, basically the after Piggy died, Away had been the one carrying on Voivod ever since then. And so now you suddenly had 2 people, yeah, it didn't work out, and Blackie eventually felt, look, my ideas are not being accepted, nobody's listening to me, apparently I have nothing to say, so I'm out of here again, and he left. So I mean, that kind of thing happened. So Mike was kind of like in the Eric Forrester position, where he came in and he held the seat for 15 years. They recorded 5 albums, 1 was a double album. He did a fantastic job. He'd taken a lot of heat in the beginning, as is the case whenever someone replaces a founding member, you know, like Dio taking over for Ozzy Osbourne, for example. Dio took a lot of heat for that, but you know, he did his thing and he did a great job. So anyway, lots of people giving their comments about Mike Mangini, saying thank you for all your work. Fantastic stuff. But it is time now for the prodigal son, in a way, to return home. All right, so let's see here. You know, we see this thing also, we see like Rob Halford leaving Judas Priest because of a kind of a misunderstanding or miscommunication, and him coming back again. Of course, Bruce Dickinson leaving and coming back. I mean, this happens all the times in bands. Somewhere around the 10th album, some key member leaves. And then years down the road, things kind of get sorted out and comes back in again. You know, same like the Deep Purple Mark II Reformation back in 1984. Oh, great, they're all back together again, wonderful. And then in that case there, it didn't work out so well. But anyway, let's see here. Yeah, okay, that's pretty much everything I wanted to say about that. So the last couple of comments here just were what I was listening to, what people are saying. A new Dream Theater album is planned. It seems that what they want to do is work on a new album for release next year and then tour that. And, you know, some people are saying, could they not do a kind of warm-up tour? I think everybody would be really glad to see the band on tour and performing their old classic songs from those first 10 albums, with maybe a song or 2 from the last 5 albums anyway, but seeing the band together with Mike Portnoy before a new album. But apparently the idea right now anyway is that they're going to work on getting a new album together, new material, and then touring that one. So a lot of the speculation is about the set lists. What are they going to play? Are they going to play anything from the last 5 albums? Will it be a song or 2? How will Mike Portnoy play those songs that Mike Mangini played on? There's a lot of speculation about that. Also, how they will open the concert, maybe open it with the song Home from Metropolis, Scenes from a Memory Part 2. Then also, what will the new album be like? Are they going to go in a more metal direction? Are they going to go in a more cinematic direction? Is it going to be a mix? What is going to come to the table? Because, as I think it was Notes Reviews, he said the last few Dream Theater albums have felt more like John Petrucci and Friends. And I can see that point coming in, because, you know, if Mike Portnoy was the creative director of the band, the one coming up with all the ideas and saying how each album should go, and he's gone, then basically you just have the musicians who are composing the music. But I don't know, if I haven't heard those last 5 albums. So was it the last 5? No, last 5. I haven't heard the last 3, so I'm not really sure. But yeah, it could be that maybe the last few albums have been just Dream Theater showcasing their amazing talents, but not having any specific, I don't know if the focus is the right word or not, but anyway, without that creative director, maybe the direction for the albums have been a little bit lackluster in comparison. But again, I haven't heard the last three, so I can't say. I just remember the reviews for the Astonishing, most of them that I read were not favorable, and I just, went on to do other things, then explore other things. So anyway, what will the new album be like? What will they play on tour? Anyway, in a way, yeah, I am glad to see Mike Portnoy back in the band. I like it when a band has a kind of classic lineup, and that classic lineup for me, I like it when they keep that classic lineup. If there are members who leave along the way, I mean, that kind of thing happens, but I always feel like the classic lineup is something to honor and revere, I guess. So it's cool. And is it a surprise? I think it's the kind of thing that just happens. We just see this happening with bands where key members leave and years later they join up again and they make some more albums together. So it's not a total surprise. And again, I'm not really one to follow what Dream Theater is doing or what Mike Portnoy is doing, but just with regards to band histories and how things go between members, I just found this was a really interesting event, and I felt I just had to make a comment on it because I have time to do so right now. Tonight when I get home, I might not. Tomorrow, I might not. So there you go. That's my bit on Mike Portnoy joining or rejoining Dream Theater. I am actually, though, looking forward to the new album. I think I will certainly buy it. And I have put View from the Top of the World in my Amazon shopping cart, even though I'm not planning on purchasing it right away. Too much damage has been done to the credit card recently. So there you go. That's it. That's all I have to say about that. And we'll see you in a video coming soon. All right. Thanks, everyone. Bye. Oh, yeah. Do leave your comments and be nice to me, because I am not like a massive Dream Theater fan, so I just don't know a lot of what's going on in the way that other people do. But I do appreciate all sorts of comments, and anything that tells me something I don't know, always glad to hear it. Okay, that's it. I'm gone. Thanks, everyone. Bye. Put my mask back on.